Problems. Raccoons in the sweet corn. Anyone who knows about raccoons know that they love to rip tender ears of corn off the stalks and eat all they want. One day our neighbor drove up our lane and parked in the yard. He strode toward our house, his face red with anger, and banged hard knuckles on the door. I had seen the car drive up and watched the man come toward the house. I wonder what's the matter with him, I thought. I've never seen him act this way before. I opened the door and started to say something by the way of greeting, but the man cut me short. Your coon ruined my corn patch last night, he stormed. Wait a minute, I replied as calmly as I could. Roxy doesn't even like raw corn. What do you mean? She's a coon, isn't she? Well, yes, she is a raccoon, but she has never learned to like raw corn. She is a better menu at our house. That's a laugh, the man sneered. You ought to see my patch. Look, you've had that coon here for 3 years, haven't you? Yes. And now she's running loose, isn't she? Yes, but listen, the man snapped. If I catch any coon on my place, that'll be the end of that pest, whether her name is Roxy or not. The angry man, up to now a good neighbor, turned on his heel, stomped back to his car, slammed the door, and roared back down the lane. The next day, another neighbor phoned, blaming Roxy for making a raid on his sweet corn. I went through the same arguments, trying to explain that it couldn't have been Roxy that did the damage. I failed again. Although this neighbor did not seem angry, I knew he felt that Roxy was the culprit. After all, my neighbors couldn't tell the difference between an innocent raccoon and a guilty one. When I hung up the phone, I said to Louise, I guess it's time for us to do something about Roxy, for her own safety. Yes, Louise agreed. For a long time we have been talking about getting Roxy started on a life of her own in the wild. She really shouldn't be a house pet all her life. That's right. By her nature, she will want to have a family and live the way all the other raccoons do. Of course, she is free now, but she still seems to think our house is her home. I guess we should take her far away and turn her loose in the woods. Getting Roxy into the car was no problem. She was used to us handling her. She trusted us. All I had to do was let her climb to my shoulder. She loved to have me carry her that way. Louise drove the car, and I put Roxy on my lap. She snuggled under an old jacket for a nap. We drove east of Billings to the county park along the Yellowstone River. This was raccoon country. Thick woods stretched along both sides of the river, and shallow channels spread out into marshy areas. There would be plenty to eat and lots of safe places to hide. As evening shadows began to lengthen, we stopped the car and put Roxy down on a grassy spot. We watched her poke around the bushes. She wandered here and there, exploring shrubs and trees. Then she walked along the muddy banks of the backwater channels, where fresh footprints of other raccoons indicated that this was truly raccoon country. When Roxy disappeared in the shadows, Louise started the car, and we drove away. I can tell you I had a lump in my throat, and I think I saw a tear trickle down the side of Louise's face. We drove home in silence. Roxy would no longer be a part of our lives, we thought. The next morning, another neighbor phoned. She was friendly enough, but she had a complaint. Say, that little coon of yours ruined a lot of my corn last night. Mrs. Johnson, I said, trying to keep from laughing, I'm happy to tell you it wasn't Roxy. It wasn't? How can you be so sure? Did you follow her around all night to see what she was doing? No, I didn't follow her around. I paused for a moment. Last evening, just before sundown, we left her in the country park. Oh, Mrs. Johnson gulped. Well, I guess it couldn't have been Roxy. That's right. She wasn't anywhere in the neighborhood. I felt almost glad we had taken Roxy away. All that day I couldn't get Roxy off my mind. I kept thinking of the way she looked as we left her exploring her new home. Oh, she will be perfectly happy there in that raccoon paradise, I told myself. Then I would remember that she was used to getting a free meal in our kitchen whenever she wanted one. I wondered if she will know how to find enough food to eat. I asked no one in particular. Oh, surely she will be all right. I answered my own thoughts. At least I hope so. About 3 hours after sundown, that second night, even Luis was feeling bad about the whole affair. We hadn't yet fed the cats, so they were calling for a late snack. Luis opened a can of cat food and started out to the porch. Imagine our surprise and delight when the instant Luis opened the door, in popped Roxy. Roxy, I gasped, how did you get here, you precious little rascal? I wish Roxy could have answered that question. There's no way of knowing how long she explored the woods that first night, or when she decided to start home. We can't even imagine how she found her way across 3 miles of countryside. Surely she couldn't have followed roads. Anyhow, I had kept her from seeing the roads or any waymarks as we took her to the park. To reach home, she had to cross 2 streams and several ditches. At one stage of her journey, she had to make her way through half a mile of heavy timber. There must have been dogs or other enemies along the way, and probably she had never seen any of these things before. Without a map or compass or even a flashlight, she had to find her way on a moonless night. Actually, I think she was never lost or even slightly confused as to where she wanted to go. God, who made all creatures great and small, has given some kinds of animals, including cats and dogs, the remarkable ability to find the way home over long distances. At any rate, within 3 hours after dark on the second night, Roxy bounced through our kitchen door. Soon after this, Robert came home from school to spend the weekend with us. When evening came, and Roxy with it, what a happy reunion they had. They played the game Roxy always liked best of all. She would roll over on her back, and Robert would scratch her tummy while she would bite and claw in mock fury. Oh, yes, Robert wore a heavy leather glove. For some reason, Roxy never played that way with me. Rather, she allowed me to give her a regular Swedish massage. I would reach down and scratch her head and neck and run my fingers along her spine from head to tail. She must have felt as soothed as a patient getting a back rub, for she often lay down, closed her eyes, and went to sleep, even snoring now and then. In 5 minutes her nap would be over. Refreshed, she would return to her unfinished meal, empty the dish, and come back to me for more scratching and another nap at my side. I asked myself what thrill of the hunt, with a monarch of plain or forest lying dead at my feet, could compare with the pure joy of having this cunning creature of the wild alive by my side. Suddenly, in the darkness of the night, she had appeared at our door and entered our house as a friend. In perfect trust, she chose to lie by my side and go to sleep. I couldn't help but think of Isaiah's description of the animals in the perfect land God plans to give to all who love him. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, And the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. Isaiah 11:6. A pleasant autumn ended. In late October, chilly weather set in with the promise of an early winter. Now Roxy came almost every night. In her beautiful winter coat, she looked as lovely as any lady wearing fancy furs. What visiting raccoons would not want to get acquainted with her? Maybe they were afraid of Kulak, or jealous of Roxy's friendship with him. Early in December, the weather turned severe. 8 inches of snow covered the ground, and the temperatures hovered around zero. We had not seen Roxy for at least 3 weeks. When darkness came on those cold nights, one of us would often say, "I wonder where Roxy is tonight. Is she cold? Is she hungry? Do you suppose we'll ever see Roxy again?" Luis asked one day. "I haven't seen her at all for such a long time." "Who knows?" I answered. "I do know this, though. I can think of no greater happiness than to have her tug at our door some evening next spring, with a new family to introduce."